So I just wanted to make a short video on the angels. The reason I wanted to do this is I was talking to someone the other day, and they were, talking about UFOs and how, very compelling evidence that they exist. I mean, you can take pictures of these things, and I've seen some of the stuff. It's very, very real phenomena. So, the guy was saying, well, God could create any kind of aliens in the universe and this sort of thing, and yeah, that's true. But we don't have to go that far to understand, in my opinion, where these phenomena are coming from, because we have angels. Okay, so there's good angels and bad angels, and if we look in the Bible, you can see where the angels were created. It's recorded in the book of Genesis when God said, "Let there be light." That included the creation of material light and also the spiritual light, the beings of light, the angels. And we know that, a third of them were cast down from heaven when they refused to accept God's will. And, the glorious Saint Michael got his name from, his acceptance of God's will by saying, he was basically saying, hey, I accept God. I'm not going to question him. Who is like God, who dwells on high? That's how he got his name. Which unfortunately some people think, oh, Michael, that Michael, who is like God? No, that's not, that was a question he said. Saint Michael didn't say he was like God. He said, who is like God? Which is no one. No one is like God. And I've got a little bit of a right to say that, since that's my confirmation name. At any rate, okay, so probably, there are probably some people who say, oh, I don't know if there's existence of angels, really? But if people would just look at their own life experiences, if they would look at it with an open heart and mind, they would realize, that everyone has seen the activity of angels, both good and bad, in their life. For instance, I could think back, I have a niece and a nephew. When they were little kids, were riding in the back of a station wagon on the freeway when the tailgate flew open, and they fell out onto the freeway at freeway speed. 65 miles an hour. Not a scratch on them. Yeah, I mean, come on. You can't tell me that that's just happened. I've read other stories. Kids falling out of 2-story buildings. Not a mark on them. Of course, I said, well, some are killed and some are not. That's because we don't understand why God allows the angels to intervene at times in the physical world, and sometimes he doesn't. Because, okay, so the angels are a higher level of being, and they actually have full command over the material world and full dominion over it. But God restricts their actions and interactions with it. And I mean, I'm not God, so I don't know what all the rules are on that. Because I do know if Satan was allowed to, he would destroy the world if in an instant, if he was allowed to. But he's not allowed to, so he can't. And I know, I read, even during the Passion, he wanted to grab the ropes and chains that they were dragging Jesus by and pull even harder than the humans could do, but he wasn't allowed to. There's limits to what he can do. He's been allowed to physically abuse some of the saints, but to my knowledge, he's never been allowed to kill anyone outright. However, he can get his people to do that. Yeah, I mean, so we've obviously seen that. And all these people who have murdered so many people. And you still see it today in smaller ways. I saw on TV a show where it was one of these detective things. It was true. I mean, and this was an actual videotape of an interrogation of a random serial killer somewhere, where this guy was picking up people he had didn't know, hadn't met. And the cops were puzzled, well, what was the motive for killing these people? How did he pick them out? And he's telling them that there was this demon, and he even had a name for this demon. And I can't remember what that was, but he's telling them, well, this demon friend of his would point the houses out to him and say, there and there, and he would tell him who he would find in there and to kill those people. And of course, okay, immediately the cops, okay, yeah, right, he's insane. Yeah, it's like, no, he's not insane. He was telling them what really happened. But that's the problem in our society today, is that the lack of acceptance of the spiritual world. And then, that's why this UFO thing, people don't understand. No, that's the activity of the demons. That's not some Martian somewhere. And why is God allowing that? And there's a good reason for that too. It's really sort of a punishment for our unbelief. But the demon is being allowed to have more interaction with the material world now because of our inviting him into it in so many facets of our lives, and so more deeply, and our deep ignorance of his interactions with us. Say, for instance, I was driving home one day from work, and there's this guy on the street corner, wildly gesticulating, calling out and stuff like that. And you're like, this guy's obviously possessed. This is the same thing that the demoniac in the tombs was doing when Jesus encountered him and cast the demons out from him. Back then, they understood more clearly that this was demonic possession. Now we're like, oh, they're mentally ill. But one big problem for us is that because we lack the spiritual understanding, that's a huge handicap for us in dealing with these things. Because of the spiritual sickness, we are having a big difficulty in applying any real antidote, which is spiritual. And they wonder, well, how come there's so many kids are getting so violent at a young age and sort of thing. It's like, how many kids are being baptized anymore? It's a real thing. Baptism is a real thing. It has a real effect on a soul. Don't get baptized? Where's going to be your resistance to evil? The devil is going to have a much easier time with these people. At any rate, so I was just going to say, yeah. So the UFO thing, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what they're doing, but they're being allowed to create these material things and move them about. Which angels, yeah. I mean, they can move faster than anything you can imagine. And they're being allowed to do this because of us, because of our unbelief. And I will say, on the bright side of it, the good angels. Also, sometimes, they save the children's lives, which we see, and we all experience both really in our lives. That old cartoon of the good angel in one ear and the bad angel in the other ear, and it's true. I mean, everybody can verify that by their own experience. There's temptation. You get this thought comes into your mind, a suggestion to do something that even if it may not be massively evil, it might be leading you down that path. An idea to do something with maybe some other bad thing to come later, temptation. So we have to reject that because that's coming from the wrong side. And then the good suggestion is to do something good, holy, help that person, do something, give to someone, say those prayers for someone. So we all have that personal experience. And then historically, I believe it was yesterday was the anniversary of Our Lady of the Pillar in Zaragoza, Spain, which in 40 AD, while Mary was still alive, it was before the Assumption, God sent her to be carried by the angels to St. James, where he was preaching in Spain. It was the will of God that a church was going to be built there in Mary's honor, the first one in the world. And on the way, the angels formed out of whatever material that that's the thing about angels. Yeah, they have dominion over the material world. Anyway, they formed this little statue of Our Lady holding the infant Jesus, which is called Our Lady of the Pillar. It's still there now. You can look it up on the internet. It's a small statue, but the angels made that. The other thing that's been pretty well documented in history is how they moved the house at Nazareth, because the devil was really trying to destroy that. Because why? The sight of the salvation of men, the incarnation of God as man in that house. You can imagine how the devil hates that. So they were marshaling all their forces to try to destroy that house, but God just said no. He had the angels transport that house first, I believe, to Turkey, and then from Turkey across to Italy, and then twice moved it to one place and then to its final place where it is in Italy now. And there were witnesses to it. He ordained that people would witness this. And the people saw it, were amazed. I mean, because they could see this house flying through the air. And some of them also saw the angels carrying it. And many of them both saw the angels and heard them singing. And this is great, that was all recorded and documented. And of course, the other thing too is, when the angels carried Mary to Spain, they were singing too. And according to Mary of Agreda, they were singing Marian hymns. They were singing the Hail Holy Queen. So those are beautiful things when the good angels are allowed to interact with us, good things happen. When the bad angels do, bad things happen. So we should always unite with our guardian angels and pray often with them.